Welcome to Rifle Shooting Seminars. This is the third of 4 sessions. Today's topic is on controlling recoil. So what is recoil? When a rifle fires, the powder in the cartridge is ignited. The resulting column of expanding gas pushes the bullet through the barrel. Every action has a reaction. The expanding gas, as well as the mass of the accelerating bullet, also push the firearm backward. In practice, the rifle not only moves backward during recoil, but also flips upward. We call this upward movement the muzzle jump. Here's a stop frame analysis of a standard rifle's recoil. As you can see, during recoil, the rifle rocks backward as though on a rocking chair. As the rifle kicks sharply backward, the muzzle flips upward at the same time. The mass of the bullet makes a difference in recoil. These are images of rifles recoiling overlaid on top of images right before the trigger break. The rifle on top is a standard rifle, shooting the familiar GP11 ammunition with a 174 grain bullet. The rifle on the bottom is shooting 6 BR ammunition with a 90 grain bullet, half as heavy as the former. When the rifle on top recoils, the distance that the muzzle jumps upward is around 2 times the barrel diameter. On the bottom, the muzzle only jumps about 1 barrel diameter upward. In other words, twice the bullet mass results in twice the muzzle jump. Another factor that affects recoil is rifle mass. This is a video of someone shooting an FTR rifle, a type of rifle used in F-class competition. F-class rules limit its weight to 8.25 kilograms, or 50% heavier than our standard rifles. It's shooting about the same weight bullets that we use. As you can see, even though there's still quite a bit of backwards movement during recoil, there's considerably less muzzle jump. The heavier the rifle is, the less recoil it generates, and the less the muzzle jumps. So does recoil affect the rifle's accuracy? To answer this question, we need to know when the recoil starts to occur. If the recoil starts before the bullet leaves the rifle, then it has a chance to influence the bullet and therefore has an effect on accuracy. On the other hand, if recoil starts only after the bullet leaves the barrel, it should have no influence on accuracy. To find out, here's a high-speed video of a bullet exiting the barrel. It's made by Applied Ballistics, a company well known to the precision shooting community. The wooden stick here serves as a reference point. It allows us to more easily perceive movements of the barrel. Pay attention to the muzzle. Let's see it again. As you can see, the barrel starts moving well before the bullet exits. If recoil starts before the bullet leaves the rifle, it has a chance to influence the bullet's trajectory. Therefore, recoil has an effect on accuracy. The fact that recoil starts before the bullet leaves the barrel means that even if your sight picture is perfectly centered when the trigger breaks, by the time the bullet leaves the barrel, it is no longer centered due to the muzzle jump. This is okay because we can compensate for this movement by adjusting the rear sight. In fact, whenever we turn the dials to center our shots on target, we're always also adjusting for the effect of muzzle jump. What is not okay is inconsistencies in recoil. Let's assume that when the muzzle jumps straight up, the shot lands in the center of the target. Should the muzzle jump higher on the next shot would land high on the target. Should the muzzle jump to the left on the next shot would land to the left. And it naturally follows that our rightward jump would cause the shot to land to the right. So what causes the muzzle jump to vary from shot to shot? As we shoot, our body contacts the rifle at several points and applies a complex network of tensions against the rifle. Unintended changes in our position throughout the string lead to changing tensions, causing the muzzle jump to also change. And because the muzzle starts to jump before the bullet leaves, variations in muzzle jump could cause variation in the point of impact on target. The heavier the recoil is on a rifle, the greater effect that recoil inconsistencies have on the bullet. This explains why smaller caliber rifles, which have less recoil, are easier to shoot accurately than big caliber rifles. Recoil inconsistency also explains why the same rifle, when in the hands of two shooters, ends up having different zeros. The two shooters inevitably hold the rifle differently, causing the recoil pattern to differ. In Swiss shooting, understanding the effect of recoil is particularly important. The bullet that we shoot is heavy. The GP11 bullet weighs 174 grains, which is as heavy as it gets in competitive shooting. At the same time, we're shooting these out of relatively light rifles. Standard rifles are required to be 5.5 kilograms or less, and the K31, which are not allowed to be greatly modified, typically weighs around 4 kilograms. By contrast, rifles in other competitive disciplines weigh up to twice as much. The result of these limitations is that our rifles have pronounced recoil and muzzle jump. Consequently, accuracy is significantly affected by recoil inconsistency. Therefore, in Swiss shooting, recoil control is key to realizing the full accuracy potential of the rifle. There are two broad aspects to recoil control. The first is to do what we can to minimize the muzzle jump. The less the muzzle jumps, the less effect recoil inconsistencies have on accuracy. The muzzle jump cannot be entirely eliminated. For the muzzle jump that remains, we must try to make it as consistent as possible. The muzzle should jump in the same direction and to the same extent from shot to shot. In order to minimize muzzle jump, our body basically needs to brace the rifle as solidly as possible. There's a reason why, in an earlier time, proficient competitive shooters are colloquially known as hard holders. This hard holding should mostly come from the natural tensions in a well-designed position, not from excessive muscle tension. However, some muscle tensions in strategic areas can enhance the solidity of the position without introducing tremor to the hold. On a K31, a solid hold comes from these elements. First, the trigger hand strongly grips the rifle. As we covered in the previous session, a hard grip helps with the trigger pull, but it also has the effect of strengthening the overall hold. The trigger hand pulls the rifle hard into the shoulder. This maximizes your body's role in dampening recoil. The facial bones make firm contact with the comb of the buttstock, and the weight of the head presses the entire rifle downward. Finally, on the bottom, the downward pressure pushes the heel of the stock into the web of the thumb of the supporting hand. The only muscle tension in this position is in the trigger hand and the forearm. This position locks the rifle into the body from 4 directions. It offers effective resistance to muzzle jump. With a standard rifle, actively pulling the rifle into the shoulder isn't necessary due to the availability of the sling. The sling traps the rifle between the hand stop and the shoulder. The tension between these 2 points is called sling tension. The sling tension pushes the rifle into the shoulder to maximize the body's resistance to recoil. The sling tension can be tuned by adjusting the length of the sling. As with the K31, the facial bones make firm contact with the cheekpiece, and the weight of the head presses the rifle downward into the rigid supporting structure that the sling has helped create. This downward pressure from the head maximizes the sling tension and plays an important role in resisting muzzle jump. The trigger hand holds the rifle's grip with considerable strength. The gripping force helps with the trigger pull, as well as further reinforcing the overall hold. For the standard rifle, the only muzzle tension should be in the grip. All other tensions in the position come from the geometry of the position itself. Now that we've minimized muzzle jump with a hard hold, let's look at how to make the remaining muzzle jump as consistent as possible. To make the muzzle jump consistent in direction and extent, we need to achieve consistency in two areas: consistent position, as well as consistent tensions applied to the rifle. The most basic element of achieving a consistent position is to simply move as little as possible as you shoot a string. Once you've achieved the natural point of aim, your hips and supporting elbow should stay planted on the mat throughout the string. A common error among beginners is to immediately retract the supporting arm after firing a shot, and generally moving all over the mat. When you do so, you've just destroyed the MPA that you worked so hard to establish. You must now re-establish your MPA and refrain from further movement of the elbow and hips. The elbow of the trigger arm generally cannot stay put on the mat, because the trigger arm is responsible for working the bolt and reloading. The trigger elbow needs to be replaced on the mat before each shot. This creates room for inconsistency. If the trigger elbow is placed inconsistently from shot to shot, it could lead to inconsistency in the way you grip the rifle, as well as changing the geometry of the position. The way to ensure that the trigger elbow is always set down on the same place on the mat is to fully grip the rifle as a first step, before dropping the elbow. In doing so, you're effectively using the grip to guide the placement of the elbow. Another area of the position vulnerable to inconsistency is butt plate location. No matter how solidly the butt plate sits in your shoulder, the forces of recoil will dislodge it from its original location, if only by a little. In addition, if you keep the butt plate in your shoulder between shots, the act of working the bolt and reloading could also cause the butt plate to dislocate. Inconsistent butt plate location could lead to inconsistent muzzle jump. To ensure that the butt plate stays in the same place in the shoulder from shot to shot, one solution is to take the butt plate entirely out of the shoulder for reloading. This necessitates reinserting the butt plate for each shot. As long as you have a good way of finding the correct butt plate location in your shoulder, you can achieve consistent placement. Many good shooters take this approach. The second solution, also popular among top shooters, is to keep the rifle in the shoulder through the string, but reset the butt plate before each shot. This approach has the advantage of being faster and requiring less movement. It's my preferred method. We now move on to the topic of achieving consistent tension. A major cause of inconsistent tension is inconsistent levels of settledness in a position. The more settled the position is, the tighter all the tensions are, and more resistant to muzzle jump the position has. You want the same level of settledness from shot to shot, so that the position maintains the same level of tension. An easy method of achieving a consistent level of settledness is to gently slam the face into the cheek piece. When you're doing this, you'll feel the sling stretch out, and the rifle pressing down harder on your supporting hand and shoulder. Do this for every shot to settle the position and achieve consistent tension. To achieve an even greater level of consistent tension, you must train yourself to be sensitive to all the tensions in the various parts of your position. And then, armed with this sensitivity, you make it part of your routine to check that all tensions are as expected for each shot. These are the questions that I ask myself in my routine. Does my trigger elbow feel as though it's thrusting into the mat? Is my supporting arm fully relaxed? Is my face in firm contact with the cheek piece, not just floating on top? Does the butt plate feel like it's wedged between my face and the shoulder? If anything isn't right, don't shoot and start the process over again. You don't need to shoot a bad shot. To demonstrate all the techniques that we talked about, here's a video of myself preparing for a shot. I like to keep the rifle in my shoulder throughout the stream. I first position the butt plate, then form the grip, then tucking my elbow and set it down, using the grip as a guide. I slammed my face down to settle the position. Finally, I check tensions throughout my position. Now I'm ready to shoot. So far in this seminar, we covered a lot of things that you have to pay attention to. How do you consistently follow these rules and best practices when firing each and every shot? To solve this problem, I'd like to introduce you to a wonderful tool called the shot plan. The shot plan is a list of all the things that you have to pay attention to when executing a perfect shot. Using the shot plan makes you a more consistent shooter and allows you to achieve a more consistent position, MPA, recoil pattern, and consistent results on target. Each shot plan is unique to each shooter. You write it yourself and continue to refine it over time. When training, you make it your goal to internalize the shot plan so that you can instinctively follow it without having to think about it. In this day and age, shot plans are an essential tool to all ambitious shooters. There's practically no top shooter who doesn't have one. Here's my own shot plan. It covers all the points that I talked about and more. In today's presentation, we covered all aspects of recoil control. We reviewed why recoil control is important to accuracy, particularly in Swiss shooting. We learned how to minimize the muzzle jump so that its effect on accuracy is reduced. We also learned the techniques that would make the remaining muzzle jump as consistent as possible. Controlling recoil is essential to extracting every bit of accuracy out of our rifles. If you're already a good shooter, knowing recoil control can give you those last 2 points necessary to win matches. But even for a beginner, learning about recoil control is useful. Every tip and trick that we talked about here can improve your general performance as a shooter. Thank you for watching, and see you on the range.